A new report that came out this week put an unwanted spotlight on the nation's two largest teachers' unions. That report came out from Defending Education, and it showed how the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, those two unions, spent more than $40 million on far-left causes in just 2 years. That includes several massive payouts to Democratic political action committees during the 2024 election cycle. Imagine if all that money was spent, helping the education of our nation's children. They're not doing great if you haven't looked into it. Maybe that's too much to ask. I guess we'll find out. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Max Nelsen. He's the Director of Research and Government Affairs at the Freedom Foundation. Max, welcome to Washington Watch.
Thanks for having me, Casey. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, I think when we see this number, $40 million, and it's not going, half to Republicans, half to Democrats. It's no secret that teachers unions give to Democrats. But can you unpack for us how they're getting such a large amount of money and where exactly is it going?
So the two major teachers unions in America today are the National Education Association, the NEA, and the American Federation of Teachers. And they have created an interesting business model for themselves. I think people tend to think of unions as somehow separate from businesses, but they really aren't. They have they're large corporate players with financial interests in increasing their revenue and their membership, just like any other industry. And so they have turned essentially a monopoly that they've secured on representing teachers in employment matters into a massive revenue stream that allows them to divert large sums of members' dues money into advancing a far-left worldview. And they do that by supporting extremely progressive political candidates, organizations, and causes. The Defending Ed report that came out this week, no offense meant to our friends at Defending Ed. They're a great organization. They do great work. But even this $40 million that has been identified here really is just a small fraction of the total amount of money that these two massive organizations dump into influencing our political system. If you take maybe a little bit broader view and you encapsulate the union's own political activity through their own political action committees, just at the national level, the NEA and the AFT, I think you can get to a number that's about $230 million that's been spent in the most recent fiscal year by these two groups, influencing politics and political debates and giving to progressive aligned nonprofit organizations. And the vast majority of this money is coming out of union dues that are paid by teachers with the understanding that they're getting some assistance in workplace representation, and not, I think, far few teachers then should recognize just how much of their money is being diverted to the extremely progressive agenda of the two national teachers unions.
Right. I mean, it's hard to see the one-to-one correlation between sending money off to the DNC and helping your average teacher who lives in the Midwest. It seems like a political project going on here. You mentioned the word monopoly, and I think that's very interesting in this because I want you to correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is that there is sort of a government-enforced monopoly, which is to say that teachers' unions give money to Democrats. Those Democrats go and create laws that are favorable to the teachers' unions, like making it harder to leave the teachers' unions or creating narrow opt-out windows or basically creating a situation where it's very difficult for teachers to opt out. There are, in many cases, that when you get a job as a teacher, you're automatically paying dues unless you go out of your way to not pay. So you create this favorable union environment, so the union gets all the money, and then they turn around and give the money back to the Democrats. Is that a fair characterization?
That's absolutely right, Casey. I think it's important to note that there's nothing wrong with teachers' unions inherently, just like there's nothing wrong with any other membership organization. It's part of civil society in America for people to form and join membership organizations to advocate for their shared interests. And there's nothing wrong with teachers doing that. The issue is that many states, not all states, but many states, generally left of center politically, have passed laws that give teachers' unions like the NEA and the AFT incredible privileges under the law. And it looks like a monopoly in two senses. On the one hand, there's a series of policies in places like Illinois, New York, California, and so on that make it difficult for individual teachers to refrain from union membership. But then there's more fundamentally a structure in place in these states that allows a union to get legal recognition under state law as the only entity that can provide workplace representation services to teachers in a particular school district. And so if you're in a state like California, where the vast majority of these school districts have been, the teachers union has been legally certified by the state, then it doesn't matter if the teacher in that district, it doesn't even matter if most of the teachers in that district want to be represented by a different organization or don't want union representation at all. It is extremely difficult under the laws in place for them to get out of that union representation. So it is literally, in a traditional economic sense, these are essentially monopoly organizations that have gotten a legally granted lock on providing a particular service to public sector school teachers in America. There's a few ways around that, but in practice, that's exactly what it looks like. And just like any other monopoly, you see prices go up, higher dues than you would otherwise see. You see competition and accountability go down. And fundamentally, that's the foundation upon which this entire political machine is built. It's built on a coercive monopoly that allows these unions to extract far more than they otherwise would be able to from teachers' paychecks and to plow the excess into advancing their partisan political agenda.
Right, and it varies state by state. I think that's worth pointing out. So some of the money goes nationally, but there's whole state infrastructures and Democratic state parties that are very reliant on these teachers' unions and its kind of symbiotic relationship. But I think the Democrats are in need of this. I want to show this graphic we have of voter registration, and I'll explain it for those listening. But voter registration in all 30 of the states that track Democratic versus Republican voter registration has actually gone down for Democrats. Not a single state are they seeing an improvement in voter registration. And we also have a poll that we just saw from the Wall Street Journal, which shows that Democrats' favorability is at the lowest point that it's been in 3 decades. And so we got about 30 seconds here, Max. I guess they need the money.
They do, but I would just caution people. I think we tend to maybe underestimate the value of these institutions in shaping hearts and minds and in our political debates. And I think what we're seeing is institutions like the NEA and the AFT are so woefully out of step with the views of most Americans and the values of many of their own members that they really do rely on these forced legal monopolies to survive. So it's an area that policymakers should pay close attention to.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Thanks so much, Max, Director of Research and Government Affairs from the Freedom Foundation. Appreciate you.